Just a bit of a help notice on me. I was actually a little bit unwell after the Sonic Symphony last week, and my throat is quite poorly, so I've not really had much chance to practice this, and also if I suddenly stop and take a second to catch my breath, that's probably why, just because I don't want my voice to completely go. But if it does, we'll be playing charades for the rest of the time, so anyway, oh yeah, and also the camera that I'm using to record this, it randomly cuts off, so I have to go and basically reset it every now and again. But yeah, so how bad will this get? We don't know, but we'll find out. So anyway, hey everybody, welcome to my panel on how the adventure games ruined us. And yeah, I do need to warn you as well, I will be giving opinions about video games. I say that because whenever anybody talks about video games, they're instantly met with, "Oh yeah, well that's just your opinion." I know.
Isn't that just Sonic Twitter?
That's just one way people talk. Of course it's my opinion. I'm talking to you about it. You don't need me to preface it with, "It is my opinion." Yes, I know it is, and this is your opinion. But anyway, so if you're here, I'm guessing it's because you've got an interest in either Sonic Adventure or Sonic Adventure 2, and if not, if you really hate these games, all right, well, anyway, let's get on with it. So, yeah. Hello, welcome. Come in if you like. Right, let's go. Okay, so first of all, an apology. So this panel is supposed to be a panel on why Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are really awesome. Yeah, feel free to come in if you like. Or don't, I don't care. Yeah, why Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are really awesome games, and why they work so well, and why we like and respond to them so much. And that would be great if I had about 7 hours to talk to you, but I don't. So yeah, behold the cut gameplay section that I really wanted to include. So I had to drastically cut this panel down, and it got to the point where it was like, this is ridiculous, I can't possibly give an overview. So instead, welcome to the real panel. I just think the way they tell their story is pretty neat. So if you are, what I'm going to do basically is explain why I think Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 tell their stories is just a little bit special and kind of unique, and I wish other Sonic games would tell their stories this way as well. Yeah, so let's get on with it. Who am I? There I am. I look like I've awkwardly won a competition to stand next to Sonic. My name is Dave. I run the YouTube channel Badnik Mechanic. I've been doing that for a good couple of years now, full time. In terms of what I do these deep dive analysis videos. I really want to get to the heart to explain why we respond and like or even dislike certain games the way we do. So I'll look at stuff like scientific reports and theory, literary theory and analysis, as well as game design analysis. Theory too, because lo and behold I have a degree in that, so yay, that goes to some use. And those are two examples of videos I've done, and yeah, the reason why there's only two is because you promise yourself you're going to get these elaborate projects done, and then you realise 3 months later, oh dear, it's still not done, and now you're in front of a group of people trying to claim that you know about this stuff with only two actual examples that they can go look at. But I promise you the other two videos are going to be really good. But anyway, yeah, so here's an example of the kind of stuff I look at to explain why we respond to games the way we do. Now, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but when you're playing Sonic Adventure and you get to Speed Highway, has anyone ever noticed that that stage feels faster than any other stage in the game? Yeah. Why?
Because it's an A.
You're close. So there's two reasons why it has this effect on us. The first one is the positioning of the camera. It essentially boils down to our evolved squishy human primate monkey brains aren't as advanced as we like to think. They're very easily to manipulate and trick. And one reason is the position of the camera, but another reason was actually something that I read in this paper from the Royal Society of Biological Sciences. They did this experiment where they were looking at how visual stimuli tricks our brains. And one thing that they noticed was there were certain ways that the brain responds to visual imagery, and I realised that some of this could actually apply to video games. And in one such section on Speed Highway, the arrows here on the floor and these arrows along the side, when you start to move through it at speed, they look like they change direction because of the stroboscopic effect, and they also start to blur as well, which gives the impression that you're actually moving faster through a temporal point in time and space, at least according to these guys. So yeah, I just felt that was really cool and interesting to explain why that stage feels faster than all the others do. And in terms of literary stuff, that's me holding a copy of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. And why am I doing that in a Sonic video? That's not really something a lot of content creators do. It's because I'm talking about Sonic Adventure 2, and I wanted to get the audience on the same page of how you can convey the idea of themes and metaphor to somebody. Like, hello, come in. So you can convey, like, everybody knows the story of the War of the Worlds. The aliens come down and they mess up London, basically. They just have a Friday night. But so they come and mess up London, but obviously the book isn't about that. The book's actually about why British colonialism and empire might not actually be a good thing. But it doesn't outright tell you that. And Sonic Adventure 2 kind of handles its themes the same way. There's a lot of stuff in there about the role of the government in our society, and also like the manner of revenge, how it's kind of it can be a generational idea. It's not necessarily a single person has an idea, it's something that can be influenced and progress over time, but it doesn't outright tell you this, so that's kind of what I want to get everybody on. And as for that bottom one, that's just a fun edit I did of Boris Johnson giving a press conference explaining why Gerald Robotnik with his army of chaos monsters isn't a bad thing and we shouldn't worry about it.
Wouldn't you like try to cover it up because that was the point?
No, I think you just say it's not a bad idea, guys. Hey, the actual voiceover for that was me saying, "Hey guys, it's your government here," and you know where the screen of the Rolling Station Square and Eggman say, "You've got 12 hours." Boris Johnson appears saying, "Do you think it's a problem that we left the crazy old man in charge of the Armageddon horror cannon? No? Well, yippee-ki-yay, everyone!" As he blows up the city. Yeah, I figured he would do that. But so, as my parents often ask me in a disapproving tone of voice, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this panel? Why are you doing videos like this? And, well, the reason why in a nutshell, gaming discourse is pretty bad. Like, it's never been great, but in recent years it's gotten progressively worse, and there are loads of reasons for this. One reason is we've kind of moved away from the old forum model of discussing stuff. Like, you don't register on a forum now and write pages and pages, and somebody else responds pages and pages, and the moderators making sure nobody threatens to kill each other. But now that's gone, and most discourse now, unfortunately, is kind of more around provoking a reaction and stoking fires, shall we say, and not a lot of it is honest and in good faith. And I think as a result, even when it is done in good faith as well, the Sonic community especially, we kind of, is gaslit the right word? We kind of gaslight ourselves into believing stuff is a thing, where I think it's way more complicated. And I'm going off on one here, but it's important, bear with me. The subject of linearity. Is linearity in a Sonic game a good thing or not? The current argument seems to be, no, it's the devil, we must not have linear levels, we must have multiple pathways, this is what people want, yeah! Well, I actually think linearity isn't necessarily a bad thing. What's bad is if you design your levels and stages which have obstacles that there's only really one solution to them. Because if you do that, it doesn't matter if you have multiple pathways. If you're reusing those level assets and obstacles, your player is doing the same thing to overcome them as they get through them. And therefore replayability, even though they've got multiple pathways, they're kind of doing the same thing all the time. So it's not as good as, say, if you have objects or challenges which there's multiple approaches that they can do depending on how they're playing and feeling at that moment in particular time. So yeah, I don't think linearity is a bad thing, but that's just me going off on why I think we kind of model the conversation. But anyway, that out of the way, I think these games are good. So
the one that ruined us.
Well, so let's talk about level design a bit, and remember I'm kind of talking about in how it relates to narrative and how it tells its story. So level design is used to communicate story to us. We often don't realise it does this, but it does. So this guy is Dan Taylor, and Dan Taylor is a game developer who's quite well known. He's done loads of talks at Game Developers Conference, and he really, really does know his stuff. And please go watch his videos. They are fantastic and they are amazing. They'll give you so many good insights. But one thing that resonated with me, and I think it applies to virtually every game that's out there, are his 3 pillars of good level design when it comes to storytelling. And those pillars are, you've got the explicit narrative, the implicit narrative, and over there is the emergent. Now, anyone got any ideas what they mean?
No.
Awesome, thank you for your honesty. Alright, so the explicit narrative is what a game directly tells you. So we might have an opening cutscene that tells us what's going on in the world. You might have characters talking to one another. You pick up from that like who these characters are, what their names are, what they're all about. It's stuff the game is explicitly telling you to understand its world. The implicit is kind of the inverse of that. It's stuff you find in the video game. It doesn't outright call to you, I am this and this is what I'm about. It's stuff you kind of pick up on. And as an example, imagine hypothetically we're playing a post-apocalyptic game in which there's been a robot uprising. We know this because the game is opened with a cutscene showing robots rampaging over. We're exploring the world and we encounter a building. We go inside this building. We see there's like big industrial machines in this building. There's like a conveyor belt with robots on it at different stages of production. We've not been told this is a robot manufacturing plant, but we know it is because we've gone in that building and we've seen all these clues. We know what this building must have done. And the emergent narrative is kind of what happens when the player puts those 2 pillars together and comes up with a story in his or her own head. So with our post-apocalyptic example, what if that building was where the robot uprising first happened? You can see now that this wasn't directly told to you, but because of the clues the developers put in, you've now got this much wider and deeper story that wasn't instantly communicated to you. So, seems hey, if you guys want to come in, feel free, it's fine.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's cool. So you've now got this huge story that you've created, which could be correct for all you know, or it might not be, you don't know. But the developers didn't have to waste time specifically telling you. You came up with that. Your own curiosity and exploration of the world enabled you to come up with that. So with that in mind, let's also look at something called mise-en-scène. Anyone know what that is?
No.
It's the location.
Yeah, you're kind of in the right ballpark. So it's a French term, and it's often used in theatre and film. It basically translates to what's in scene. So if you imagine you're watching a play and the curtain's down, the curtain goes up, and whatever you see should instantly tell you everything you need to know about the location you're looking at. So with that in mind, anybody here not played or not heard of Fallout?
I part of it, never played that.
Okay, right, so look at this screen right now. Just shout out what you can see, like everybody. Just
Brown.
brown. Okay, where are we? Desert. Okay. What about the road?
Looks like it's very worn down.
Worn down. Good. Okay. But yeah, abandoned. Good. So we look at this and we get a lot of information. We know we're in the desert. We know that the road hasn't been maintained for years. We can see the telephone poles are not connected. One's leaning over. The buildings are also wrecked. We don't need to be told this game is set decades after a post-apocalyptic nuclear war. We can tell something bad has happened just by looking at this one still image. The level design is communicating all this environmental storytelling to us. We don't need the narrator to say, there was a terrible war and now the war never changes, here we are. You know, we can see all this, we can look what, we can figure out just by looking at it. But also the objects we hold as well, the gun, it's not like anything present day, it looks science fiction, but it also doesn't look brand new and shiny. It looks like it's been around for a while, it's old. We now have a temporal point in time as well. We don't need to be told a specific date. We can figure out we are decades into a future and something terrible has happened in this environment. So what do we get from this one?
It was a temple full of the Kinder OCs.
Yeah, but you know that because you've played the game. But so this is the temple from Sonic Adventure. But just look at this image for a second and think about what you get from this. So you can see there's this mighty structure in the centre of a city. Now we know from our own real-world understanding of cities that the centre of it is usually the most important part. It's where business is conducted. It's where the government is run. And look at all the roads. They all lead to this one area. There's also no guards in front of this building. It stands to reason it was a public building. People could have come and gone here as much as they pleased. And this one building also towers above every other building and even the tallest part of nature. The people here were powerful. They were able to construct this, and it was a big public building. It was important to these people. Oh my God, what happened?
So a lot of them committed genocide.
Yeah, so
This is my turn.
the first big clue is the entire bottom half is gone. There's only the top part remaining. None of the other structures remain, and nature is completely taken over. We know that something catastrophic must have happened to the people who lived here. We don't need to be told this. We can see just for the change in time that something major happened to the people that lived here. And as we play the game, we start to get more clues. If you play the stage Lost World, you can see there's evidence of irrigation. There's water sources flowing through here. Again, was this for decoration, or was it actually practical use? Was it plumbing, for example? Or was it like a drinking fountain, say? There's also smaller structures and dwellings. Could they have been homes? Maybe they could have been businesses. You can sort of see now how it was a big building in the centre of their city, a public building. People probably came here to do business. Maybe they lived, maybe they worshipped here. It stands to reason now that this was a building that was welcoming. So with that in mind, why is it full of dangerous traps? This doesn't make sense. Why would you have a big public building in the middle of a city filled with deadly traps? And if you're thinking, oh, Dr. Eggman did that. No, he didn't. In Sonic Adventure, Dr. Eggman, when he sets traps, they're always mechanical or robotic in nature. If you look at any stage where Eggman has gone in, every single trap he sets is robotic or mechanical. So I'm willing to bet the echidnas did this.
That was my guess.
But why?
They're all
Why
normal
would-
droids.
Well, yeah, they are, but why would they do it to their own people in a public building? This doesn't really make sense. And
So either was an asshole.
then you get through it as well, and there's more clues. Like you have Pachacamac as well. Later on, when they do the raid, he sees Chaos. But look at how he addresses him. He doesn't call him by name. He says, "Ah, it's a monster," because he doesn't know who Chaos is. If he knew who Chaos was, he'd recognize him and his response would be totally different. But this is the first time they've ever met him. So in that case, why is their temple full of carvings and effigies of a creature they haven't encountered yet?
How did they even manage to carve it if they all got killed after that?
Well, fortunately, my friend, the game does explain this. Because obviously there's a contradiction here. And your initial reaction might be, this might have been just a mistake on the developers, but I actually don't think it is. If you go back to Dan Taylor's theory on the three pillars of narrative and narrative design, this is what I come up with. The Echidnas were this powerful tribe of people. They had this huge temple, which was the most important part of their empire. And as the game explains, their empire was on the verge of collapse. Pachacamac says to Tikal, "We need those emeralds so our people can prosper." The raid is the last throw of the dice. They go and do the raid, and it goes wrong. Chaos attacks, wipes out the raider party, but he doesn't stop. He goes to the Echidna city, and he essentially wipes it all out. But he doesn't get everyone. And there are some survivors, and the survivors realize, God, our empire is doomed. There's nothing we can do. So they attempt to rebuild, but it's hopeless. So all they can do is salvage what remains of their temple. Hello, feel free to come in. So they salvage what remains of their temple, but they don't construct it as it is. They essentially turn it into a warning for future generations about who Chaos is and what he can do and why you shouldn't steal from him. But they don't just want this knowledge to fall into anyone's hands, so they put some security measures in. They booby-trap their temple to keep people out. And then they evacuate to Angel Island and live out the rest of their days. Now, how much of that was told to you directly in the game? How many cutscenes explain all that?
Nothing. Nothing explained that.
Exactly. The first half of what I said kind of does, but the rest of it doesn't. So, yeah, you can see now how, through Sonic Adventure's level design, you can come up with a much wider, deep and intricate story than you first came up with. So imagine my surprise when I found out that is actually canon. So this is the Japanese strategy guide, which was not released in Europe, and to my knowledge, this hasn't been produced in the West either. If it has, let's be honest here, how many of us really know about this document? I certainly didn't, but the actual story that they have in the strategy guide goes into what happens after Chaos attacks the Echidnas, and it explains that there were survivors and they tried to rebuild their temple, but it failed, and they essentially turned it into a warning, at which point they evacuated to Angel Island, where Knuckles is now the last of their kind. But none of that is explained in the video game. Yet you can get it just purely by paying attention to the level design itself. And anyone is capable of doing this, and there's loads of really cool stuff in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 that does this. So that ain't a mistake. The developers knew what they were doing, and can you now sort of see how you've got this much more intricate story that doesn't need to be directly told to you? It's stuff you can pick up from within the game itself. So, yeah, level design and storytelling is a really good thing. So please give us more of that and not cyberspace. But anyway, that's another rant for another day. All right, so anyone know what cinematography is?
No.
Studied at uni, so yeah.
I apologise for what I'm about to do to your profession.
Oh, God.
Okay, so for the purpose of this, I'm going to use a basic entry-level idea. It's the idea of using a camera to give a deeper sense of truth about what's going on in a story or how a character is feeling about something. It's kind of how you frame a scene. So here's a scene from Sonic Adventure, and I really like this scene. It's the one where Zero's captured Amy, put her in the prison cell, and there's a clear relationship here. Amy's the prisoner, Gamma is the jailer. Gamma comes in and says, "Give me the bird." She says, "No." He says, "Give me the bird." She says, "No." He says, "Give me the bird." She says, "No, let me out." Okay, lets her out. But there's actually some really awesome stuff going on here with the cinematography, and when you pick up on it, I don't think you can look at this scene the same way again. So here are all the sequences of shots where we take, or are very close to taking, Gamma's point of view. In these sequences, we are Gamma the robot looking at Amy. Does anyone spot anything kind of wrong about these shots? Very good. So yeah, there's no bars, but Amy's in the prison cell. Would you like to see how Gamma looks when Amy looks at him? Every single time we take Amy's viewpoint, Gamma is the one behind bars. So when we look at this scene, the actual roles are reversed. Gamma is the one who's the actual prisoner in this scene, not Amy. When they look at each other, they see the other character as they themselves view them. So Amy views Gamma not as the jailer, but as the prisoner. And Gamma's is even more interesting because his story starts out with this battle in which he has to defeat his brother. And Eggman's like, "Oh, Gamma, you were great. You could be a soldier. Come join my crew. I need guys like you on my team." He kind of beefs him up to be like, "Yeah, you're awesome, Gamma. I like you." But Gamma then finds out what happened to his brother. And again, with the use of the camera, Gamma kind of looks frightened. It's kind of weird. It doesn't, it's a machine. It shouldn't be, but it's the way he's positioned. It kind of looks like he's scared. Because Gamma learns from this what happens if he fails. And he learns what his actual real role is in this relationship with Eggman. He ain't a soldier. He's not a member of his crew. He's a slave. This is the moment where Gamma realizes that he himself is an actual prisoner. And when he looks at Amy, Amy says, "Go away. No, I'm not giving you the bird." Because she's the one that's truly free. If Gamma did this to Eggman, Eggman would disassemble him. He wouldn't have two thoughts about it. But Amy doesn't have this fear because she's the one that has true freedom, and Gamma views her therefore as being actually free, whereas Amy views him as the opposite. He's the one that's the actual slave. And this once again ties into how the rest of his story goes. When he eventually agrees to turn against Eggman, he says, "E-series friends must save," and then there's a flashing of the Flicky family. Now when Gamma says, "I must save friends," is he talking about the robots or the birds?
Both.
Maybe, maybe not, because this all depends on how you feel about how you've resonated with Gamma as a character, because he might want to rescue the robots because he realizes that he's actually a slave, so therefore they're a slave as well. He wants to free them from Eggman. But if he does that, he also has to realize that the tiny bird that's powering him is also a slave. And has he learnt the lesson that he himself is a prison for this creature? Because originally he said to Amy, "Why care for something that is lesser than you?" The question is if Gamma actually learned that. And that's kind of why I think 20 odd years on we still have these fierce debates as to, did Gamma self-destruct at the end, or was it damage sustained in the final fight? And I think it's really just determined on how you view these scenes when you look at it more closely as to what your answer to that one is. But yeah, Gamma's story is awesome, but this one also has its moments. So there's a really cool thing they do here with Shadow. Every time Shadow meets a new character or a new representation of something, they always position the camera low down, and they come up with really fun artificial ways to do this. Like the start of this sequence, Eggman's actually way up outside the pit, working on the control panel, and then the thing rises up, and Eggman jumps into the pit. Why would he do that? Well, he does that because now you've got this shot composition of Shadow looking down on Eggman. And the idea that Eggman is the guy that represents all this evil and power in the world, and Shadow just sort of looks down on him, it means nothing to him. And then later you've got this shot with Sonic, the representation of all justice, hope and heroics, and Shadow again is looking down on him, it means nothing to him. And here as well, you've got Shadow on the Golden Gate Bridge looking down on the gathering authorities, i.e. representation of humanity's strength, power and order in the world. Shadow just, that's nothing to me. And finally, Shadow looking down on the literal world itself. Nothing on it is above him. He looks down on everything. It's almost as if having the nickname the Ultimate Life Form makes you a bit arrogant over time. And here's the funny thing. There's another character in this game who kind of acts a little arrogant too. His name is Sonic the Hedgehog. And this cutscene is this is my favourite scene in the whole game. And the reason why is just the shot composition is wonderful here. It really does show you how the two characters feel about each other. So let's take a closer look at this. So this sequence starts where we, the player, take the viewpoint of an observer. We're not any other character in this point. We can't actually see Shadow in this shot. We just see Sonic, his shiny, shiny teeth. So we then cut, and oh my god, it's the guy who launched 1,000 fangirls. So, yeah, now there's some fun little thing here you can do for your, if you're at school doing English literature. Feel free to quote Sonic looking over his shoulder at his dark shadow. You'll probably get a C at least, but yeah. Yeah, that itself has some literary connotations to it, but watch what happens when this scene plays out. So we take the view of the observer, and then we actually take Sonic's view. Now watch Shadow's eye line. Shadow is looking at Sonic, looking at Sonic, looking at Sonic. Now he's looking directly at us. So we've taken Sonic's viewpoint, and Shadow's talking to Sonic, but in subsequently, he's talking to us. Shadow's looking at us, and we are Sonic. But watch the movement of the camera here. So we're now Sonic, Sonic's slightly ahead of Shadow, and the camera starts moving. So Sonic must be moving in this sequence for it to make sense. So when the camera cuts again, the player takes the viewpoint of Shadow, and this time we're actually looking at Sonic, and Sonic's subsequently looking directly at us, i.e. directly at Shadow, so they're both maintaining eye contact. But if you look closely, you might actually spot what seems to be a continuity problem. So let's take a look at the previous clip again, and you'll see that we're now looking, this is what we just saw previously, where we take the viewpoint of Sonic and he's looking directly at Shadow, and Shadow's looking directly at Sonic, i.e. we the player. You might notice here that there's something a little bit wrong, and what it is that both characters appear to be trailing the other one. So here, when Sonic looks at Shadow, he sees Shadow as being sort of weaker, i.e. he's trailing him. But when we take Shadow's viewpoint, he looks at Sonic, and the reverse is true. To him, Sonic appears to be weaker as he's trailing Shadow. But wait a minute, this seems to be a bit problem. Both these sequences can't be correct. This is impossible. This can't be right. So what's the truth of this scene? Which character is actually ahead of the other one? Probably lost a huge chunk there, but who cares? So yeah, so when we take the viewpoint of the observer, we can sort of see that Shadow's not really looking behind him anymore. He's kind of looking to the side. And also when we cut to Sonic as the observer, he's also looking to the side. Well, the truth of this scene and what's actually going on is what happens when you put these together. Throughout the whole sequence, they were actually walking parallel to one another. Neither one was ahead of the other one. The problem, though, is that they're both so arrogant characters in this game, they can't bear to view the other one might actually be on equal footing, let alone better than they are. Because they have this whole argument all the way through it as to, you're not like me, you're just a copy, you're a fake. And Shadow's quite arrogant, and it kind of rubs off onto Sonic as well, because in all their little fights throughout the whole game, neither one of them outright defeats the other, but they're still convinced that they are better than the other right up until their final fight. And this ultimately is the lesson that they kind of have to learn from this, because obviously they realise they're not better than one another, and they have to come together to save the day. Which, yeah, I think is quite a decent lesson for us all, really. So, yeah, this is all very well, but why should I care this much about Sonic video games? Well, this is where I sort of have to get my big head moment and promote my own stuff, but like I said, I wanted this to be a huge deep dive analysis into both these games, which I quickly learned was just impossible, unless you wanted to listen to me talk for 8 hours. And ultimately the answer is because we want better games. So if I've kind of given you some insight or made things a little bit interesting as to what you can actually get from these games, which on the surface I think we could all admit, yeah, they're cool, but they're not that serious. Oh no, they are. We can get a lot from these. I really do truly believe we can actually get a lot from Sonic games, and I think if we can have the knowledge and the tools to have better conversations about them, we can be way more honest with each other as to what we do like about them, what works, what doesn't work, and hopefully that will get fed back in some way, because I do think, well no, I know because I've spoken to them, the people at Sega do listen to what we have to say, and they do kind of notice it, and I just think that we should be doing more ourselves to really improve the quality of conversation around these games. So if you want to see what I have to say on them, if you disagree with me, that's fine, but yeah, that's just my pitch, because I think games are important and you can get quite a lot from them, even if they just look like a silly little blue hedgehog goes on an adventure. But anyway, that's my panel, so Q&A time! It's the mandatory Q&A, you're not leaving until we get at least one question. Now, you don't have to answer questions if you don't want to. I kind of put this up here, like I said this morning. Sometimes when people do panels, people will often say afterwards, oh, I wish I'd said something, but they don't know what. So there's some questions, if you like, and don't read too much into the bottom one, but it would be nice. Anyway, yeah. Any questions? Oh God, there is. We'll start for you. Yes, you.
Oh, okay. How do you think Frontiers handled its story?
Oh, I have a lot to say about Frontiers. So, I'm actually doing a video on Frontiers at the moment. There's an obvious missed opportunity with Frontiers, and I'll kind of mention it. Why are the cyber stages not themed around the ancient civilization? That would have been so much better if you don't need to outright show what happened to them, but I think it would have been cool if you play through that and it's like you see what their civilization looked like, and then maybe as you start to play through it more and more, the scenery changes slightly, that there's something coming that they're aware of, like maybe buildings are starting to tumble and topple as you progress through that. You could even keep the layouts exactly like the classic stages that they bring in, like Sonic Adventures 2 stages are in there, the layouts are the same. And it would still fit the idea that it's a shared mind that Sonic has with these other characters, and I think that's a really good example of a missed opportunity that they could have done. And I have other opinions about that, but again, we don't have 9 hours. But anyway, anyone else? Oh god, I'll go. Wait, you and me, purple.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
So first off, no need to apologise about the cinematography thing. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
Secondly, going back to Gamma real quick. Do you think maybe like the model also helps convey that the sense of fear with the way the eyes are kind of like diagonal, kind of like going prey and predator, like kind of like the way they are positioned?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been people that know way more about character animation stuff have done videos explaining this way better than I can, but there is a weird thing that I think the characters in that game that are better are the ones that don't have facial expressions. So Eggman doesn't have a facial expression, but he does all these really cool gestures. Like when he first activates Gamma, he turns around, but he does like a plie turn from ballet as he goes, and it's like, that's amazing, more of that please, because he's so pleased with what he's built. But Gamma is the same, and there's even more stuff as well. Like one thing I noticed is that the speed Gamma walks into a room changes depending on how frightened he is. Where do you get that in new games? Why don't we have that? In Sonic Forces, Vector comes running in screaming, saying, everything's awful!
He didn't run and scream, he just was more tired than anything.
I know, but yeah, so that's the thing. It's definitely the facial expressions. And anyone else? You in the green next to you? Green hair.
Green, it was supposed to be blue.
Oh, sorry. Look, I'm wearing glasses and I'm not really correct.
No, I agree with you, but I understand that like Sonic's aimed at kids and kids should still have good stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what you think is broadly the issue now with the modern game. Is it like, are we too spoon-fed storylines? Are they too shallow? Is there no detail? Like, what's it missing?
So there's a lot of stuff. My main argument is gameplay. It's kind of like I hearkened to this earlier with that example of, I think a lot of levels are designed with one solution, and speedrunners love this, but I hate it because I don't speedrun Sonic. I'm going to say something here which people will take out of context, and they'll be posting this on Twitter and being like, look at what this idiot said. Nobody plays Sonic games to go fast. Now I got to try and justify that. Right. How many people genuinely buy a video game and think, I hope I can beat this quick? No one does. You want to get something genuinely fun and valuable from it. And yeah, that means you can eventually go fast and beat that stage, but like with adventure, there's a lot of obstacles in that game that have multiple approaches to overcoming them. So even when you come back to those stages years later, depending on how skillful you still are at it, you can approach your stage different ways. And then you can go really quickly through them if you like. But there's that initial hook of, this is really awesome, I'm having fun and I'm enjoying solving the problems that the game has in front of me. But in terms of story, I think Frontiers, with how it handled the cyberspace stages, was a huge mistake. I really genuinely do. And again, there are some examples of where they use like more environmental stuff, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Like with Frontiers, you have all these huge... I'm giving you all my video stuff that I'm working on. You have all these structures that essentially boil down to, ooh, it's the mysterious ruins. All right, and it's like you can't really figure out anything else from it, and I think that's a little bit of a shame with that one. But yeah, anyone else questions? Oh dear, there's a lot. I think I might be running over time here. Yeah, guy at the back.
What are your thoughts on Shadow Generations so far?
Shadow Generations. Do you know, I've not really been paying much attention to it. I'm kind of hopeful, but I will need to wait and see on that one. The big thing for me, again, it's like I want to see stages which are designed that you can approach it in multiple ways, which are not just an arbitrary choice, if that makes sense. You know, like, I know the current big thing is, oh, we could beat it not using the Doom powers! I kind of want to see the terms and conditions of that statement before I start celebrating, just because I've been burnt too many times with that one. But yeah, I'm hopeful. It definitely looks cool at least, but yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, guy with the glasses. Oh, it's not a question time.
Without using the dreaded ludonarrative dissonance word, which would trip. Yeah, there you go. That's how you know you're a game student, right there.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sonic games have a really difficult balance of finding the middle ground between telling a mature story, which would alienate children, and then doing the inverse, which would alienate us.
Yeah.
Very, very briefly, because I know we've got a little time.
Yeah.
What steps would you take in future products to try and bridge that gap? What would be the most prevalent thing that you would pick to go, they should focus on this majority? Because I personally think Frontiers took a slight step in the right direction.
I think something that they could do more of is simply like the importance of silence. Like we talked about Gamma just now. There's very little dialogue in that. It's told through his gesture, the way he moves through a cutscene. And Frontiers has this wonderful sequence where it's Amy's in the field of flowers.
Yeah.
And throughout Amy's entire storyline, Sonic goes up to her and is like, "How you doing, Amy? You okay?" She's like, "I'm fine. How you doing, Amy? What's it like being ghostly?" "Oh, it's weird, but I'm actually feeling pretty good." And then you get to this scene where she's sat and she can't pick the flower. And she doesn't say anything, but she looks devastated. And that's the moment where you as the player realise, oh, if I don't figure out a way to save her, this has big consequences. That's like the moment where the stakes, shall we say, are fully realised. And I really liked that. I really liked that approach of storytelling and communicating, because you don't need to overanalyze stuff to get the importance from that. You can literally see it happening there in front of you, and anybody can pick that up. Right, I better just take a couple more. Amy cosplayer.
Hey, other than the adventure games, what are your other favourites in the Sonic series?
Okay, I like Generations, but I have opinions about it. Generations was the first time we saw the classic stages in fully 3D, something that we'd wanted for decades. I know it's kind of a old thing now, but that was really fun. I like Sonic CD, but I have a lot of opinions about that. Sonic CD is the one where I genuinely felt like I was playing a movie for the first time, even though it's absolute nonsense to think that right now. But yeah, there are emotional attachment reasons. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'll answer your question after the panel with the cool ears.
So, because there's 4 versions of the Chow version between the Dreamcast and GameCube games,
yeah.
Which one considered the best one?
I gotta be honest, I don't like Chow. I really don't.
What?
I'm absolutely using that soundbite for the next video. I just wish I was filming it that way. Alright, I'll explain why I don't like Chow very briefly. I don't like it because I think that several games have had the full-on, like Adventure 2 has the foundations of a full-on Chow RPG. Because there's some really cool stuff in there. The problem is, I hate the fact I've just spent ages going through this level over and over again, getting these animals which I then feed to my weapon of mass destruction disguised as an alien, and I do it wrong. And it looks like a Cronenberg monster now. And I wanted a chaos one. It's like, what do you name it, Mr. Hoopy? it's too much of an investment that can go horribly wrong very quickly, and that's why I kind of don't really like it. But I think it's something that definitely needs refining more. But Adventure 2 definitely the best garden for that. If anyone else has any questions, I will be sort of hanging around outside, so I will answer them. But otherwise, guys, thank you very much. Please consider following me. That's my tip jar, by the way, if I entertained you long. Just sort of pretend it's an off-beat to Sonic, but you don't have to do that. But anybody who does will get credit in my next video. So, yeah. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day.